I heard the knock before I saw them. 3 slow raps on the wood, too polite to be strangers, too familiar to be anyone I wanted to face. Grant looked at me from across the kitchen island, eyebrows lifting in a quiet question. I did not answer. I just walked to the door and opened it. Vivian Avery stood in front, wrapped in her usual confidence, though I saw the tightness around her eyes. Camilla hovered behind her, sunglasses pushed to the top of her head even though the sun had set. Rowan Pierce lingered last, hands shoved deep in his coat pockets. And then there was my father, Edward, standing slightly apart, as if unsure whether he was invited or merely attached to them by habit. "Sloane," Vivian said, voice warm in a way meant for audiences. "My goodness, look at you. This place is quite unexpected." Grant stepped beside me, steady as always. The moment Vivian saw him, her smile faltered for half a breath. She recalibrated so fast anyone else would have missed it. "Good evening," Grant said, extending a hand. Vivian shook it, but her eyes flicked from him to me, as though recalculating a story she thought she had already finished writing. I stepped back. "Come in." They crossed the threshold like people entering a museum. Camilla's gaze drifted over the living room's clean lines. Rowan did not look at me at all. He studied the floor with the shame of someone hoping no one remembers the script he abandoned. I moved ahead of them, forcing myself to breathe evenly. The kitchen lights were warm, the counters spotless, the scent of roasted thyme still floating in the air. This home felt earned, built, chosen. Vivian lifted her chin. "You have certainly created a life for yourself out here." Her tone carried a softness that hid sharpness. Grant heard it too. He slid an arm lightly along the back of my chair, subtle but unmistakably protective. I met my mother's eyes. 7 years ago, you helped dismantle my old one. I did not have a choice then. I do now. Rowan flinched. Camilla swallowed. Edward shut his eyes for a moment, as if bracing for impact, and I let the silence land exactly where it belonged. If you have ever tried to rebuild yourself after family betrayal, stay with me. Your story matters here just as much as mine. Vivian sat at my kitchen table like she owned the air around it. Camilla perched beside her, legs crossed, waiting for cues the way she always had. Edward lingered near the window, quiet, hands folded behind his back. Rowan took the last seat, eyes still avoiding mine. The silence pressed until Vivian finally spoke. "You were such an independent child, Sloane, always off in your own world." She offered a smile that never reached her eyes. "I used to worry you would grow up without learning how to connect." I pulled out a chair but did not sit. "I connected just fine. You were simply not looking." Camilla shifted. "Mom, maybe this is not." Vivian raised one hand, silencing her. "Your sister always had such presence. People admired her the moment she walked into a room. It was natural to guide her toward the spotlight." Her tone suggested the explanation should comfort me. It only reminded me of being 14, standing in our hallway with a robotics trophy Vivian never asked about. I remembered her saying, "Camilla has rehearsal. Help her with her costume straps." Dear. The trophy stayed in the hallway for weeks before it disappeared. Grant leaned against the counter behind me, arms crossed. "Presence is not the same as worth," he said calmly. Vivian bristled, but her voice remained smooth. "I never said it was. I simply recognized each daughter's strengths." Edward spoke quietly for the first time. Sometimes the recognition was uneven. Vivian turned toward him, startled. "Edward, that is not fair." He did not lift his eyes. Neither was the way things fell on Sloane. Rowan exhaled sharply, as though the tension finally touched him. "Your family always treated you differently," he murmured. I looked at him. "And you never questioned why." Camilla's voice cracked. "Sloane, we were raised to play parts. You know that." Vivian's mouth tightened. "Camilla, enough." Grant stepped forward. She is not wrong. The room splintered there, old roles straining under the new life I had built. I did not raise my voice. I simply stood my ground. I left that house, I said, but the house did not leave me. Rowan finally looked up, and the guilt in his eyes was sharper than anything he could say. He cleared his throat once, then again. I remember when we met. He said, "You were sitting on the floor of the Carnegie Mellon lab, fixing a motor no one else could figure out." Vivian smiled faintly. Sloan always did prefer machines to people. Grant's shoulders tightened behind me, but I kept my eyes on Rowan. "You sat next to me," I said. "You asked if you could help?" "I wanted to impress you," Rowan replied. "You made it look easy," Vivian interjected softly. Rowan had potential. It was clear from the first moment. Camilla flinched, as if hearing the old script hurt her now. Rowan swallowed. "Your mother asked about my plans: graduate school, leadership tracks, internships on the East Coast. I thought she was just interested. She was not," I said. "She was evaluating." Vivian lifted her chin. "I was preparing you. Both of you. Opportunities follow certain pairings." Grant stepped forward enough that his presence reached the center of the room. "You mean you matched people the way you arranged furniture?" Vivian's smile cracked. "That is unkind." Camilla's voice came out thin. "Mom, you encouraged things. You told Rowan that Sloan was too focused on work." A tight laugh escaped me before I could stop it. Too focused on finishing my degree, too focused on not disappointing anyone. Edward looked at Rowan. When did things shift? Rowan pressed his palms together. "Around the second year." "Your wife," he corrected himself. "Vivian invited me for dinner when Sloan was preparing for exams. She said it would be good to talk privately," Vivian answered instantly. "You needed guidance." Grant's tone sharpened. He needed boundaries. Rowan looked at me again. "I should have told you. I should have asked why she wanted me there alone. I felt the old fracture open, not fresh, but remembered, deep and quiet." "You did not," I said, and everything after that became easy to take from me. Camilla whispered. "It was never meant to be easy." But it was. That was the problem. Rowan rested his elbows on his knees, staring at his clasped hands. "Things did not change all at once," he said. "It was small at first. Small." I repeated. The word felt brittle. He nodded. "I started arriving late to our study sessions. I kept telling myself it was traffic or meetings running long." Vivian interjected quickly. "You were very dedicated. That is not a flaw." Grant's gaze cut toward her. Dedication to whom she ignored him and folded her hands neatly on the table, as if she were moderating a panel discussion rather than sitting in the middle of a confession. Rowan continued. "Your mother would call me about opportunities. She said a mentor of hers had connections to a research program at a medical robotics firm. She said Camilla could help me prepare the application since she knew how to present well." Camilla's face paled. "Mom, you told him I had already worked with that mentor. I had never even met the man." Vivian's jaw tightened. "I gave you both advantages. I refused to let either of you fall behind." I stepped closer to the table. "You rearranged us. That is not guidance." Rowan exhaled shakily. "There was this one week in November. Your mother called me 9 times in 10 days. She kept saying you were overwhelmed, that you were pulling back, that you were thinking of moving to Silicon Valley without discussing it with me." Grant turned to me. "Did you ever say that?" "No," I said quietly. Rowan nodded once, ashamed. I believed her. Every word. Camilla rubbed her temples. "God, Rowan, Mom told me you two were drifting apart. She told me Sloan said she needed space. She said it was kinder if I stepped in before you were hurt." Grant's voice dropped. "That is manipulation. Not kindness." Vivian's tone sharpened. "I acted in everyone's best interest. Sloane was lost in her work. Rowan needed someone who could engage with his future. Camilla had the poise and the presence for that path. Edward lifted his head wearily. Vivian, listen to yourself. Rowan looked directly at me for the first time since stepping inside my house. The final shift came when I mentioned your mother's lemon rosemary chicken, and you froze. You asked how I knew about it. I lied. I said I stopped by because she needed help moving a shelf. Sloane from years ago tightened inside me, the version of myself who had tried to explain away every odd detail. I said softly, that was the night I realized something was breaking, and it was not just us. Vivian inhaled, preparing her next justification, but the balance in the room had already begun to tilt. I remembered every detail of that night, even before anyone in my kitchen tried to defend it. The memory lived under my ribs like a bruise that never healed. I leaned against the table now, steadying myself before I spoke. Let me tell it, I said. All of it. Vivian's expression flickered, the first sign of unease I had seen since she walked through my door. I began. It was the second week of December. Finals were coming up, and I told Rowan I needed a quiet weekend to study. He said he had an overnight project meeting. I believed him. I looked at Rowan then. He did not look away. That Saturday, I continued. Something felt wrong. I could not focus. Every time I tried to read, the words on the screen felt like static. I breathed once, evenly. So I drove home. I did not tell anyone. I think part of me wanted to prove that nothing was happening. Camilla swallowed. Sloane. I lifted a hand. I pulled into the driveway a little after 9. All the lights were on. I could hear voices through the windows. Laughter. Yours, Camilla, and Rowan's. My mother's voice underneath it all. Rowan closed his eyes. I walked inside. I said, and none of you heard me. You were too busy. Camilla covered her mouth with her hand. Vivian stayed stone still. I stood in the hallway. I said, and I saw the 3 of you in the living room. Camilla leaning in close. Rowan sitting between you like he had been placed there. And you! I shifted my gaze to Vivian sitting like a queen at your throne. Vivian's voice came sharp. That is a dramatic exaggeration. Grant stepped forward. Let her finish. I kept going. You were telling Rowan he needed someone who could match his future. Someone polished. Someone who knew how to network. Someone who would elevate his life rather than get lost in her work. Camilla's eyes filled. I never should have sat there. I should have walked away. You were doing what you were raised to do, I said softly. You were performing the role our mother wrote for you. Vivian's lips thinned. You always framed things so harshly. I ignored her and focused on Rowan. You did not argue. You did not defend me. You listened like you had already been convinced. Rowan's voice cracked. I was confused. Everything she told me made me feel like loving you was selfish, like holding on to you would trap you. I shook my head. But that was never your choice to make. Silence stretched, heavy and electric. Then I said the detail that shifted the room. Camilla had my coding notebook on her lap. Camilla gasped. Sloane! I did not realize Mom told me to show him how to organize his research better. I did not know it was yours. Edward's voice broke. Vivian. You took Sloane's work and gave it to Camilla. Vivian snapped. It was a notebook. Edward. Not a life's work. Grant's tone was low but sharp. It symbolized something. You knew that. Rowan leaned forward, voice shaking. When Sloane walked in, I never saw her. I was so focused on what your mother was saying that I did not look toward the door. I nodded once, remembering the burn in my chest. I did not say anything. I just left, drove until the highway blurred, stopped at a rest area past midnight and sat in my car until the sun came up. Camilla whispered. I wish you had yelled at me that night. I did not have any breath left to yell. I said. Grant touched the small of my back, grounding me. And in the silence that followed, every person at that table understood that the story had shifted from accusation to truth. And the truth was no longer something any of them could run from. I took a breath before continuing, feeling the old exhaustion rise through me like steam from a cracked pipe. When I left that house, I said, I did not know where I was going. I only knew I could not stay another second. Edward's shoulders slumped. You drove all night. I did, I replied. I pulled off the interstate when the sky turned pale. I sat in the car with the heater running and tried to convince myself I had imagined everything, but I had not. I paused. So I called Mara. Camilla's eyebrows pinched. She came for you, didn't she? That same morning, I said. She drove 2 hours from Pittsburgh without asking for details. She just opened the passenger door and said, Tell me what you need. It was the first time in months someone spoke to me without trying to redirect my life. Vivian folded her arms. You could have come home. You could have talked to us. Grant let out a quiet, disbelieving laugh. Talk to you. After what she walked in on, Vivian glared at him, but he did not move. I continued. Mara helped me pack. I told the university I needed a leave of absence. They suggested counseling, academic support, extensions. They did not understand that my problem was not school. My voice softened. It was losing the last piece of myself I thought was safe. Rowan rubbed his forehead. I should have asked where you were. I should have gone after you. No, I said. You were already gone. He flinched as if struck. Camilla looked at me through tears. Where did you go after that Portland? I answered. I bought a one-way bus ticket with the little I had saved. Mara's cousin offered her couch for a few weeks. That was enough. Vivian shook her head. You left your entire life behind because of one moment of confusion. That is not rational. Grant stepped closer to her. It was not confusion. It was betrayal. I faced Vivian then. I left because I realized staying near you meant losing myself completely. And I finally chose myself. No one argued after that. The truth had already settled, heavy and undeniable. Grant's hand stayed warm against my back as I spoke, and for the first time that night, I let myself lean into it. When I got to Portland, I said, I thought I would feel free. I did not. I felt like someone had peeled off my skin and left me raw. Edward looked pained. Camilla wiped her cheek quickly. Vivian kept her spine straight, as if refusing to absorb a single word. I worked part-time at a small robotics shop. I continued. Mara used her connections to help me finish my last semester remotely. I answered emails from a kitchen table that barely held 2 plates. Every night. I tried to convince myself I had made the right decision. Camilla whispered. You did. Vivian shot her a sharp look. But Camilla held firm. I kept going. I started therapy with Dr. Linden. She asked why I spoke about myself like someone who had to earn the right to exist. She said I behaved like people only valued me when I stayed quiet. I met Vivian's gaze deliberately. She was right. Vivian's fingers tightened around the edge of her chair. Therapists love rewriting childhood. It is their business model. Grant answered before I could. Your actions rewrote much more than that. Rowan exhaled heavily. I did not know you were struggling that badly. I should have reached out. You were busy preparing a future with someone else. I said. And I was busy trying to remember who I was without your approval. His jaw clenched. But he said nothing. Then Grant spoke for the first time with real weight. The first time I met Sloane, she corrected a wiring diagram no one else understood. She did not brag. She did not hesitate. She just fixed it. He looked at her. Not them. I learned more about her in 20 minutes than her family seems to have learned in 20 years. Vivian bristled. We raised her. Grant's voice stayed even. You shaped her fears. She built everything else. Camilla let out a shaky breath. Sloan. I watched from the sidelines while Mom pushed you into shadows. I never stepped in. I let her turn me into the bright one and you into the quiet one. I am sorry. I nodded once, accepting the words without letting them soften the air. Portland gave me room to exist. I got promoted. I bought this house. I met Grant. And I learned to stop apologizing for being myself. Edward whispered, You found peace. Not peace, I said. A foundation. Vivian finally spoke again, voice tight. And now you want to throw all of this at us as proof that we failed you. I met her stare without blinking. No. I want you to understand that you no longer get to define me. The room fell quiet. Not from fear, but from a shifting power that none of them could deny. Vivian straightened her blouse as if she were preparing for a televised interview instead of a confrontation in my kitchen. Sloan, she said, you have made your point. You built a life. You moved forward. There is no need to drag the past into this evening. Grant spoke before I could. The past walked through our door when all of you did. Vivian's eyes narrowed at him, but she maintained her composure. We came to reconnect, not to fight. Camilla let out a soft, bitter laugh. Mom, we came because you insisted. You said it was time to address Sloane's attitude. Vivian snapped. I said no such thing. You did. Camilla replied. Last week, in the car, you said Sloane was becoming ungrateful. Rowan shifted in his seat, discomfort growing across his face. Edward remained silent, palms clenched together. I leaned forward slightly. If you want to reconnect, then tell the truth. All of it. Vivian folded her arms. The truth is that you misunderstood us. You always took everything so personally, Grant murmured. That is convenient. Vivian's patience snapped. You barely know her. You have known her, 2 years, 3, Grant said. And I know her better than you ever have. Vivian inhaled sharply, ready to strike back, when Camilla suddenly pushed her chair away from the table. No, Camilla said. I am done letting you twist this. Her voice trembled, but her spine stayed straight. Sloane deserves the truth. Vivian's face went pale. Sit down. Camilla shook her head. You cannot keep me quiet anymore. Not tonight. Rowan looked at her, startled. Camilla. She raised her hand to stop him. Rowan, do not protect me. Not now. She turned to me instead. Mom started calling Rowan months before that December night. She told him you were distracted, that you were not serious about your future together. She made it sound like you were only half invested. Rowan swallowed hard. Your mother kept saying that ambition was pulling you away. She said you talked about moving to Silicon Valley alone. I believed her. That was never true. I said, not once. Vivian hissed. Camilla, be quiet. But Camilla's voice only grew stronger. No, I am telling her everything. You told Rowan she needed someone more polished. You said I could help him shape his career. You told him Sloane did not know how to support a man with ambition. I felt Grant stiffen beside me, fury radiating from him like heat. Edward looked shattered. Vivian, is that true? Vivian's chin lifted. I guided them. I made sure no one wasted opportunities. You manipulated them, Grant said sharply. Vivian's eyes flashed. You are overstepping. Camilla's breath shook. Mom drafted messages on Sloane's old tablet. She told me to send them so they would look like they came from her. Rowan's head dropped into his hands. I saw the messages. I thought they were real. I thought she was ending things slowly, Grant whispered. God. Edward stared at his wife. Vivian, how could you do this? Vivian's voice rose, brittle and trembling. I protected my daughters. No, I said quietly. You protected the image you built around one daughter. Rowan finally looked at me, eyes red. I should have asked you. I should have fought for us instead of letting your mother define who you were. Camilla wiped her cheeks. I believed her too. I should have questioned her. I did not, and I am sorry. Edward turned fully toward his wife. This ends tonight. Vivian recoiled. Edward, but he shook his head. No more. Not after everything you have done. For the first time in my memory, Vivian Avery stood alone, no audience, no script, no daughter performing beside her. Just the truth, laid bare under a light she could not control. Vivian's chair screeched against the floor as she stood. If this is how you speak to your mother, then I am leaving. No one moved to stop her. Camilla wiped her face. I am staying, she said softly. I am done pretending you are right about everything. Vivian stared at her as if the air had been sucked out of the room. Camilla, do not be foolish. Grant stepped forward. Leaving will not fix what you broke. Vivian's voice thinned. I do not need fixing. She grabbed her purse. I am done with this circus. She walked out, heels hitting the hardwood in sharp, angry notes. The door shut with a finality that felt less like departure and more like truth being sealed. Edward sat heavily. Sloane, I should have protected you. I should have seen what was happening. You see it now. I said, that matters. He nodded, eyes wet. If you will have me, I want to try. Not as some distant figure who watches everything happen, but as your father. I placed my hand over his. Then try. Rowan stood last. I cannot undo what I did, but I hope your life, this life, gives you everything I was too weak to offer. Grant's arm circled my waist. Steady. She chose herself. That is what matters. Rowan swallowed and walked out quietly, leaving Camilla, Edward, Grant, and me in the soft hum of the kitchen. Camilla spoke first. I want to build something real, not something Mom scripted. You can, I said, but it has to be yours this time. Edward reached for her hand, and for a rare moment, the three of us felt like a family untouched by performance. Grant leaned in close. You okay? Yes, I said. For the first time, I am exactly where I want to be. If you have ever rebuilt yourself after being rewritten by others, stay with me. Your voice matters here, and your story deserves to be heard.